Well, welcome everyone to how to use pathways for President, Vice President of Education, and Secretaries. My name is Scott Brown. I am a Vice President of Education for Clubs, and I'm also the Program Quality Director for District 11. I welcome you back to the session. We have had a number of these sessions throughout the course of this Toastmasters year. This is another one that we are trying to help everyone who's in that role just get a little bit more comfortable in how to be a Basecamp manager and how to help your members understand how to go through Basecamp. I think those are important parts of your roles there. Um, so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna kind of walk through what a Basecamp manager really does, how you go through and manage the processes that are part of Basecamp. Oh, wow. Toastmasters changed the front picture. Oh my goodness, that's the first time they've changed that image in years. So we're going to go through what to do for Basecamp. So I imagine everybody can see the screen that I am sharing, which is the Toastmasters International website page. You get to it at toastmasters.org. Hopefully all of you are familiar with this. If I can get a thumbs up in the little reaction thing, if you all know how to get to this page, which is toastmasters.org. Thank you, Regina. Appreciate that. All right, so from here, there's a couple ways to get into pathways. A bunch of you, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. So there's a couple ways to get into pathways. The most common way that most people use that they knew about first was the pathways little icon here on the front page. If you go to the tab here, you can go into pathways. If you click on this, it will open up a bunch of different options for you. The navigator, which is basically the newsletter welcoming everyone to pathways. You can go and choose a path. You can go to Basecamp, what updates have come out over the past few years, learning more about what pathways is, frequently asked questions about what pathways does, all of those things, all very helpful, but a long way to get in to help yourself out. If you instead go up to the top, mine says welcome Scott because I am logged in as myself here. So on your pathway, on your main screen for Toastmasters International, it would say welcome Robin or welcome Regina or welcome whomever you are. If you click on that little active link here, it will take you to your profile page. How many of you have seen that little shortcut to come into your profile page this way to be able to see all of your information? Anyone familiar with this? Yes, no? Thumbs up if you know about this. Regina, yes, very good. All right, so it's a little bit easier way to find everything that you need for pathways. Very good, so everybody knows about this, very good. So I don't know why I'm teaching this to all of you today. Within here, there's a couple of things to do. The most common one for your members, two most common ones that your members would use, and this is available for every member. They all get access to these options here. So they can view the navigator, which is the newsletter that describes what Pathways is. They can go into choose a path. Very important when somebody first starts Toastmasters. This is where you go in to actually choose your new path. So this is where they go to be able to do that and to go to Basecamp. Now, as Basecamp managers, you have different access than what a normal member or a normal club officer would. In order to go into Basecamp, there's a couple things to know about this. As a Basecamp manager, you only have access to be able to view pathways for your individual club. So as you go in, you're going to choose a club. If you're a member of multiple clubs, this little in the little caret, the cursor, you drop that down, it will list all of the clubs of which you are a member. I'm a member of 4 clubs, but I only am a president, VPE, or secretary of 2 clubs, meaning I only have access to 2 clubs' pathways information. So I need to pick one of the 2 which I would have access to be able to show you today. If you're a member of multiple clubs, choosing the club that you want to go into that Basecamp for is important. Otherwise, you won't have access to the other one. You can only look at one club at a time. So I'm going to click to go into Summit City Toastmasters, of which I am VPE. And as Basecamp manager, I want to click on the box here that says log into Basecamp manager, and then I want to go. And that is going to launch and take me to give me 3 options. Within Pathways, within Basecamp, there are 3 main choices that everyone has. You can either go to pending requests, member progress, or manager tutorials. Pending requests is by far the most important part of going through pathways for Basecamp managers. Why is that so important? Very simple. Every single member who completes a level will automatically trigger a request for you to approve their completion of their level so they can then move on to the next level within pathways. It doesn't necessarily click it. It doesn't necessarily create that option for you at the end of a project or at the end of a path. Rather, it does it at the end of a level. So within each individual path that someone is pursuing, there are 5 levels. At the end of each one of those levels, it's going to want you to click on the request to approve that request so they can then move on to the next level. When you do this, when you click on pending requests, it is going to take you within your club to be able to show who has pending requests for you to approve. Now, since we as a club have been off for the past 3 weeks, I believe, because of the new year and the holiday, well, I don't have anybody in there because nobody's been giving speeches for the past 3 weeks, so there's nobody that actually going to approve. If there was someone to approve, I would see their name here, requested by. It would show me who it is that's requesting to have that level approved. Over on the far side here, it would show me the date of when they finished it and the options approve or send back to the member. When you click on the approve, it's going to give you then an option when you approve it over on this far side under options, which would give you yes or no. When you hit yes to approve it, it will then give you an option to send a note back to the member if you want to. You can always type in something nice like congratulations, way to go, on to the next level, something like that, just to give them a little reinforcement. Not necessary to do, but you do have that opportunity to be able to do that. This is without a doubt the #1 place you go as a Basecamp manager. It's the most important part is to help your members go through pathways to be able to understand how to work through each one of those paths. But it is not the end all for how you go through and help somebody be able to get through their paths. Because you as a club probably want credit when somebody is going through and completing paths, right? There are very few clubs out there that I can think of that would say, yes, we want to help members move through, but we do not want to receive any DCP credit for somebody completing a level. It's not a thing. Every club wants to receive credit for somebody completing a level. Pretty important. So in order to do that, the other place that you would go to is instead of going into pathways here, instead of going into Basecamp and pathways, where you would end up going instead, in the main screen, when you go to Leadership Central, you then have the option to go to Club Central. Club Central contains a bunch of different reports specific to individual clubs. So again, because I'm an officer in 3 different clubs, I have the option for those. Let's just go into Summit City Toastmasters because I have the option to be able to add people there. This one right here, second one down, left-hand side, Submit Education Awards. This is where you will go to submit an education award for the member that just completed a level. When somebody finishes a level, they don't automatically get credit in Toastmasters International. They get credit to go on to the next level, but the club doesn't get any credit for it. To do that, you need to go in here, Leadership Central, Club Central, and then Submit Education Award, and then pick the member who has finished the education award, and you're going to give that person credit for their individual award. If you don't do this part, your club doesn't get any of the credit for that member completing the actual award. You have to do both parts in order to get credit for everybody to be able to do that. How many of all of you whom are VPEs and president secretaries, how many of you are familiar with doing these 2 steps? Thumbs up if you know that you have to do these 2 steps and where these 2 steps lie within here. Nice, very good. If you are not familiar with this, please make yourself familiar, because go in and check this out when we get off the call so that you know how to go in and submit those awards. one of the biggest questions that I get on a regular basis as being a PQD for the district is, why are we not showing any educational awards for our clubs? Because I know that there are members completing levels, I'm going in and approving them. Why are we not getting any credit for that? Well, the answer is really simple. The answer is because nobody's gone in to do this second step. This is the step that gives you the credit as a club for your DCP points towards your DCP goals. Second step here, incredibly important. So are we comfortable with moving on with how to, are we comfortable with going on with how we give credit to people for finishing a level and how we give credit for a club for that member finishing level? Thumbs up if we're comfortable moving on past these two parts. Jonesy, yes. All right, I see a bunch of thumbs up. Good to go. All right. Now, the other thing that VPE secretaries and presidents really are responsible for is to help their members navigate pathways as a whole. And this can be challenging at times. So if you go back into your individual, click on your name and you go back into your individual profile, instead of going into Basecamp as a Basecamp manager, this time I want to go in as a member, because I want to be able to help a member walk through how to understand what to do with a path, how to go through that path. And to do that, oftentimes you can do it through Zoom here, just the same way that we're doing this, share your screen and walk them through how to understand what a project looks like and how to navigate each level within an individual path. So I'm just going to go to Summit City, just because that's where I am. And if you scroll down a little bit, paths and learning, you can see that I have a couple of paths that I'm working on right now, educating humor and leadership development. When you click on one of these, you're going to open a specific path that you're working on to help somebody walk through. When a member clicks on this, they're usually only going to have one option here. So if they click on the open curriculum for the path of which they are going through, they will then open the second screen that will list all of the levels. Now I've gone back to level 1 here, even though I'm really going on level 4. If you go back to level 1, you get to see that there are a number of options here for the projects within here. As somebody first starts pathways, it's important to have somebody walk through how to go through pathways for them. So it's not just this theoretical, I know how to do it, but actually give them the practical experience to understand how to get through each one of their paths, each one of their projects. The first one is always going to be the icebreaker. Everybody starts with the icebreaker. That is the very first project we all start with. There are a couple important components that everyone needs to understand through each one of their projects. Eventually, mine will open. This is part of the joys of having multiple people working at home and sharing the internet bandwidth. Sometimes stuff opens slowly. We're opening and we're opening. So as you have had members join, have you been able to go through and walk anyone through? I'm wondering if if anybody out there has actually gone through and walked someone through their paths as a whole. Yes, no, yeah, good, Robin, thank you very much. Robin, did your members find it helpful when you did that? Regina, did your members find it helpful when you helped people walk through how to use the paths?
Yeah, for sure. That to me, that's one of the things we have to continually do, especially with new members coming in. So even members that may have been there a year or two that don't get into it as frequently, it's great to have those refresher training. So I've done it several times with anywhere from one person in the audience to 3 or 4, and kind of walk them all through it.
That's awesome. Thank you. That is very important. There's another group that is really important to help walk through how to use a path here. We have a lot of members that were members prior to Pathways becoming the educational platform, back when we still were on Legacy and we still have all of the manuals. Some of those members have not wanted to transition over to Pathways. Part of it is because they're afraid of the technology. If you can help someone walk through this process, it makes it a little bit less scary for them. And I've certainly found that the members that get the one-on-one attention from someone, their mentor, somebody they're connected to in the club, somebody they're connected to within Toastmasters as a whole, that if they get someone to show them that it's not as scary as they think, that they're more than willing to give pathways a try. Within this first speech, within the icebreaker, it really encompasses, I think, the first 4 projects within the legacy manual. So instead of having those individual projects where you first learned how to talk about yourself for 4 to 6 minutes, and then there was an organize your speech, and then there was organize your thoughts, and forget the other 2 that were in there. Those first couple of projects, they incorporated all of those into the icebreaker themselves. It's an icebreaker itself. When you get someone to start this, I encourage you, start at the very beginning and walk them through so they can see what all of the buttons do. They can see where to go through all of this, and you can help them learn the differences between where the arrows go, the drop-down boxes, and how to navigate through a project as a whole. The arrows on the right-hand side always advance someone right to left. Every slide gives them an introduction for what it's going to be about. And then you can just help them go through, this is what you're going to do for the project as a whole. It's going to be a 4 to 6 minute speech to talk about yourself. And then there's also opportunities under to download things. Directions for how to download something. I highly recommend, as you are going through and rolling this out to members, the more that you can get someone to download and save the files to their computer, as opposed to printing them, the happier they will be long term. Because when you think about how long just this first one is, my dogs are all of a sudden unhappy with somebody outside. When you think about how long this project is here, it's a big deal. This is a really big deal. Oh my goodness. All right. And that's what happens when the UPS guy comes and rings the doorbell and you have 2 dogs and you're doing a Zoom call. All right. So I encourage everybody to instead of printing all of these things, to instead go in and save them. So if you go into things like project checklist and it opens up what the project checklist is, on the right-hand side, there's an opportunity for them to print it, or there's an opportunity just to save it, to download it. Downloading it saves on their computer, on their device, so they have access to it in the future, and they don't have to waste 46 pages of paper and ink. And all of a sudden, then they would realize it's a waste of money and time. Don't let them do that. Teach them how to save this information. The second thing that I think is really important for members to understand as they're going through here is if they get stuck, this drop-down box on the bottom, this select to move to another section, this allows them to navigate to every section of the project itself. And the one place that people tend to get stuck, especially on the first level, is they go through, they do the speech, they've done the pre-test, and then at the end they're like, now what do? I can't get out of it. I can't figure out how to finish this. And it's almost always because they forgot this one section down here, assess your skills after. If you show them how to get to that, assess your skills after, and put in the scores for your secondaries, for the secondary evaluation, it's then going to allow them to complete to complete the project to move on to the next one. Without this, they never get credit for it. They can go and they can open the next one and do it, but they can't get credit to ever complete a level. Showing them where this box is at the bottom, the assess your skill after, is one of the biggest sticking points I have found from members, no matter which district I've been in. This is where everyone gets stuck, is how to complete a project. So if you show them where this navigation box is on the bottom and how to get to each of the individual sections, it can really help them navigate this a little bit more easily. If you go up to if you go up to the resources, within the resources, the evaluation resource, the print your project, and the outline, all three of these are really good resources for them to be able to save going down the road. If you go to print your project, if I was to hit print, it'll be 23 pages. That's a lot of ink. I can save it. I encourage you to teach them how to save all of their projects. I have a file on my computer with every project for every path that I've been involved with, so that I can always go back and review them if I want to. The same with the outline. This is a really good worksheet for them to be able to, especially as an icebreaker, to start learning how to write a speech. Not everybody is comfortable with how to actually write a speech. This is the first part that really helps take them through how to create and captivate your audience through speaking. This worksheet can be then, if you save it, it can then be reused for every future speech someone does before they get comfortable in writing it without having to go through a worksheet first. This is one of those reusable resources that we have to help individuals navigate through pathways a little bit easier and to find something better for them within pathways. The secondary question that I get significantly within each path is, even though you have all of your projects here, every individual path, every individual project gives you suggestions on what to talk about. Everyone that has joined Toastmasters did so because they are looking for an opportunity to grow in some specific way. None of them joined to be a better Toastmaster. And I think as a club member, we all like to hear speeches on different topics. We don't necessarily want to hear the same speech from every single person. We want to hear the differences. We want to hear people's personalities and thoughts, and we want to understand what they know, so it becomes a learning experience for us as well too. Just because it tells you that within this project you're going to research something that you know little about, that's not necessarily true. You can research whatever you want. You can go deeper on a topic. You can develop a deep niche within something. How somebody uses pathways is completely up to them. They can be as loose with the topics as they want, as long as they are following the components of the project itself. And what I mean by that, if you are doing the evaluation and feedback project, there's nothing that is off limits for what you can talk about, what's important to you, what you need to explore. You can give a speech on anything you want that is important to you as a member. Encourage your members to find what Toastmasters means to them, where they're trying to use this, and then use Toastmasters as a laboratory to practice, to encourage them to learn how to fail and fail forward, to fail fast and fail forward, and then learn from that and be able to then, after you've failed forward, be able to advance wherever you're trying to go. So the goal isn't to prepare speeches for a Toastmasters audience. The goal is to help members prepare speeches to help them apply what they're learning here outside to the real world. Nothing good happens if we hold on to all of that knowledge, if it's only done for the benefit of Toastmasters. When Toastmasters are able to apply what they learn within Toastmasters out to the real world and apply it to their job, to their personal life, to their communities, to their churches, to wherever it is that they are trying to speak, wherever they're trying to become a leader somewhere, that's when Toastmasters becomes meaningful to people. When we only allow people to give speeches based upon what Toastmasters says, it becomes stagnant. So I encourage you to allow members with the flexibility to make Toastmasters viable for them. Let them follow the projects, but apply it in a way that makes sense to them. Generally, that statement usually invokes some conversation and questions. So what questions and conversations do you have about that concept of allowing people to apply Toastmasters wherever it makes sense to them out in the real world, even if it's not traditionally how we used legacy or how we use pathways? What questions do you have about that or comments? Nothing? We're all good? Thumbs up if we're good, if we think if we understand the why and we're behind that. That was very fast from a couple. Joan, Robin, Regina, those were incredibly fast thumbs. Good job. All right. So that's kind of the why behind we do a lot of this for Toastmasters, to get into the paths. There is, of course, another section here that we want to talk about briefly. And that is, there are a lot of reports that are floating out there within Toastmasters that, especially for Basecamp, are pretty easy to be able to access. And depending upon what you need to do within your own individual club, can help you grow as a club. All right. So if I go back into Welcome to Basecamp, if I go back in as a Basecamp manager, I go into a club of which I am a Basecamp manager. Option number 2 on this list is Member Progress. Member Progress is a bunch of different reports that you can open that will give you graphical representations and a little bit more of a deeper dive into where people are within their Pathways journey. Sometimes takes a moment for all of these to open. Now, one of the biggest roadblocks that I hear from members, from Basecamp managers, when they use the reports, is that they're very slow to open, and that is 100% true. So you have a couple of things to do. You can see here. You can go through individual progress. You can look at the level completion for everybody. You can look at path progress, path type, who's involved in that. Whatever you're interested in, you can look at how your club is functioning through each of those levels. So let's say you want to go to level completion. When you click on level completion, over here, there's this little caret, little drop down here that you can then refresh your page. And when you refresh it, it will re-pull all of the data. Without that, it just stays on a blank screen. And this isn't fast. So refreshing your data, if you scroll down a little bit here, you can see that there is a little circle spinning down here, and it takes a little bit for it to pull. My understanding is that all of this information sits on a single server at Toastmasters International. So you have every club around the world that is trying to pull reports, trying to come off of one server in Denver, Colorado. That's not always fast. It doesn't always work exactly as you hope. Eventually, I'm going to get a bar graph here of people. Anybody going to use these reports at all? Has anybody gone in to explore these? Do you find them helpful? I personally, I was a Basecamp manager in a previous district. I was a guide and an ambassador. I've never found a reason to go in and use these, but there are a number of folks out there that are a lot more analytical than I am that love these, which is why I want to show you how to get to them.
I use them often just to try to see where members are, because a lot of members often do not know where they are in their pathway. So I try to utilize that sometimes to help guide them through their pathway.
So there's another way to do that. I know this sounds, I know this is in no way meant to be condescending whatsoever, so please don't take it that way. The other way to be able to do that I find clubs kind of tend to forget, is that we can have conversations with members. Sometimes those personal conversations where we aren't just trying to kind of go in by ourselves to find the information, but we want them to be able to, we're giving them, instead of giving them the fish, we want to teach them how to fish. Having those conversations and walking them through their path to figure out where they are within things also shows where they get stuck. So if you look at the club that I'm in right now, you can see where folks are. We have one person that's engaged, that's in engaging humor. We have somebody who is registered in presentation mastery, another person that's in progress there. Somebody completed visionary communication. I know that was me. And I know that the engaging humor is where I have started here. So it'll give you a little bit of a history as to where people are. And it does give you a nice little graphical representation of what people are working on. And to give you some ideas for maybe how to format meetings and how to create different learning opportunities within your clubs to help people get through each one of their sessions.
Scott, just a question.
Sure.
Can you determine who is in those particular paths from that, or is there another way to kind of piece together who is in those particular status levels?
I do not, I personally do not believe that to be so. It gives you the one person in there. I don't necessarily know if it tells you who is in there. The level completion does it but the individual progress does it by person. So you can see so you can see an individual to where they are within a certain level, but you can't necessarily see if they have multiple ones going where they are. So if
Okay.
you're looking for an individual person, that's the top one, but you can't click on each of the bars and to be able to drill down. Like it's just a static image. It's not a live image to be able to help you dig down any deeper into that information, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I had an issue where I'd already approved the level. And then as we were preparing for the next meeting and I wanted to acknowledge it, I was trying to go back and remind myself which level they completed and which path so I could acknowledge that, but I couldn't find an easy way to go back and get that information.
There's unfortunately some of the stuff that you would hope to find here isn't necessarily as easily accessible like that as you would hope. The communication part is I think the most important part. If you send the notes to people, so if you go in and you actually send communication to people, like you send something out to everybody and say, hey, congratulate when Regina completes a level, and if you were her Pathways Basecamp guide, and you send it to the club, hey, let's congratulate Regina on completing her level 1 of her first path. That's the best way to keep track of stuff, unfortunately. Sometimes the old school stuff in here, and when combined with the technology, works out well. It's not as smart of a system as what you might hope, but it does give us access to a little bit more than what we'd have before. The one thing we don't have to worry about now, though, which is really nice, is losing books. If you were around before, you know the pain of losing, of when you handed your competent leadership manual to your VP of education and then they lost it and you never got credit for all of those months of going through a competent leadership manual or an advanced manual. It happened to all of us. This is a really good way that it keeps all that information, but I'm not going to say that it's perfect. It's improving and they're getting better at it, but it's still a work in progress. So if you're interested in digging down to these, there are some reports in here that sometimes you find beneficial, sometimes you don't. We are at our heart, though, a communication organization. The more that we can build relationships with our members so that it doesn't become a rote process, but actually becomes a live and living communication type process, the more you're going to be able to engage and keep your members engaged and active within Pathways. There's one other part for you that I think is important for all of you as Basecamp managers and as officers. How many of you have been to the District 11 education site? Anybody know that there's a video library that we have for Toastmasters? Regina's like, I do not know where you are. So at the top, Toastmasters district11.org. This is the District 11 website. It's just for us. It's a free Toast website. It's just for District 11. A couple important things on here that anybody who's a Basecamp manager or a club officer probably needs to know. Fourth one down, you see where I'm circling around here, district calendar. See where I am here on the left-hand side? If you click on district calendar, you're going to see that this is where all of our training schedules live. So this is everything happening for the rest of the Toastmasters year. You can see that this is a month chocked full of training opportunities. Basecamp stuff this week. We have roundtables next week. Then we have 7 days of role-specific training, which I'm still looking for presenters to be able to present one person for president, one for VPE, one for VPM, one for VPPR, et cetera, et cetera. Last month, we also have roundtables again. If you forward through the months, you see that not only do we have the schedules for the first day of the whole different level contests, last day is the whole levels of contests. You have all of the trainings that are listed on here for the rest of the year. February is a little bit light. March is a little bit late because we're getting into contest season and that tends to become more of the focus. And then April, we have the conference. So within the district calendar, this is all the stuff that's happening and anything that gets added here. So if there's somebody that says, hey, I wish we would do a training about this thing, and I find someone to do that training, I throw it on here so you know where it is. So I encourage you to bookmark it, go back once in a while to see what's coming up, what's happening, so that you know where we are within a training process, you know how to get to stuff. The second part in here, education session video library. We record all this stuff. And after we record it, we post it. On the education library, here in the middle of the page, you see it says Club Officer Training Playlist. Thumbs up if you see where I am right here with the Club Officer Training Playlist. Everybody sees where I am right here? A couple of it, fantastic, thank you. If you click on that, within the Club Officer Training Playlist, this is all of our trainings that we have recorded since March. And I have them grouped together by types of presentation. So we have all of our contests, all of our contest information at the top because we're in contest season. We're holding club contests right now, how to hold online speech contest. Then we have the award ceremony. We have unforgettable presentations from Darren LaCroix from this past April. Then we go into the club officer trainings from this past June, where we have all of our individual trainings there. Base camp manager training. So we have all the different base camp managers sessions that we've had over the course of time. Pathways basics, club officers, how to hold hybrid meetings, Facebook rooms demonstrations. If you don't want to use Zoom, we have how to use free conference, Jitsi, and how to use those different programs. We have the club ambassador program. Then we have all of our presentations from different education segments. So some of these are from Fall Education Week. Some of them are from the Great Education Series. But you can scroll all the way through. Most of them are 45 minutes to an hour because that's how long we have to go in order to get credit from Toastmasters International. Roundtables. So if you're a club officer, if you have a club officer that can't come to a live session, they can watch one of these videos for a role, and then they can come to a live roundtable session to be able to get credit. And we tape all of these as well. We have 58 total videos posted so far. The one last night will be 59. This one will be 60. When I re-record the evaluation segment from Fall Education Week, that'll be 61. So we save all this stuff here. I show this to you not just so that it's for your benefit, but imagine what you could do as a VPE if you had a way to be able to show somebody what a VPE does to recruit somebody for next term to help you out this term, get somebody trained so there's a smooth transition year to year in helping somebody do that. That's where all of these come from. That's where all of these are helpful. That if you utilize this to help your members become a little bit more knowledgeable about what's happening within Toastmasters, how the whole thing works, then not only does Pathways become part of their education series, but this becomes part of the education process to help them learn about Toastmasters and learn about how to apply some of the stuff outside of Toastmasters. There's probably not an employer out there that doesn't want somebody to be connected to know how to look for opportunities, how to become an exceptional leader, leadership lessons. All of these things are part of what Toastmasters does, and we record all this stuff to give you another educational resource for Toastmasters. Anybody out there, has anybody gone through and watched any of these over the past year? Regina, I'm judging from I didn't even know this was a thing. That's probably a no for you. But I encourage you, go through and check out some of this stuff. There's a lot of good stuff on here. Check out all of these links, check out where all this stuff is, and you will find a plethora of knowledge that you can then pass on to your clubs. You can pass on to your members as well. It would be helpful if you sent the link. I last sent the link 3 days ago, or actually 2 days ago. Every time that I send a link that says, hey, here's where all the trainings are, if you look in that, the links are in there. I believe that I counted up over the course of Christmas break, and I think I've sent the links for this. I want to say it's been close to 40 times since April. Google Toastmasters District 11. On the left-hand side, look for the educational link. Just click on that button, you'll go right there. Look at the emails I send you because I do try to communicate with everybody about stuff that's coming up on a pretty regular basis. Read through those. There's always links in there about stuff that's happening and about where to go to find information. Toastmasters District 11, and then look for the educational link on the left-hand side. So that's a lot of information I shared with you. What questions and comments do you have about pathways, about any of the training, about what's going on? What can I answer for you as a whole? Please feel free to unmute and ask away anything that you might be wondering about. Regina.
You just mentioned that you could go watch one of the old videos and then attend a roundtable. So what happens at the roundtable? And I believe there's going to be some roundtables next week. So what actually happens?
Roundtables are really just a basis for us to talk through how to become a better club officer. Because you've gone through and you've watched trainings. So here's why we have roundtables. Toastmasters International says, in order for trainings to count, there has to be a live component. Up until last year, we couldn't do any of this stuff online. But once the pandemic hit, they're like, well, I guess it's time to change our ways. But Toastmasters still wants us to have a live component. So if you go and watch a recorded video, it doesn't count as a live component. So we figured that if you bring a bunch of people together and just talk about how to become a better club officer, that's a live component. And we do it for 45 minutes or so. And it's a good networking opportunity also to learn who else is out there in different clubs, to make some friends with different people. Because I don't know about you, but I really miss being in the same room as my other Toastmasters friends. And this is another opportunity just to at least get together and have a conversation where you can share what you've learned and learn from what other people have learned as well. That's the whole idea behind a roundtable.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an educational opportunity just as a conversation. It's kind of guided by the group. What else? What else is out there?
I have just a simple question.
Yeah.
All the base camp manager trainings that are going on this week, are they all the same?
Yep.
Or, okay.
All
so
the same.
Only need to watch one.
Correct. If you noticed, every single training we've done this year, there's been multiple sessions. I never want Toastmasters to feel like an obligation where you have to try to fit it into your life or kind of wrap your life around it so that it becomes a central part. I want to give the opportunity that Toastmasters become an added benefit to you, and you can come to something when you're available. So every single thing that we do training-wise always has multiple sessions, minimum of 2. I generally try to get 3. This week I was able to get 4. So they're all the same. When you see the same thing repeated on the calendar, it's the same thing time after time after time. So the one I do tomorrow is going to be the exact same as the one I just did today. You're welcome to come to another one if you want to. That's perfectly cool, but you don't need to.
Just a question. I'm curious if anybody has used the reports within the pathways and found those helpful or useful for anything that that you've done.
Regina, you said you use them a little bit, right?
Yeah, just slightly. I just go in there to see where some members are in their individual progress. That's the only portion that I've used.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. Definitely communication direct is good, but I often find myself wanting to find out. Okay, I know some people may have had more speeches that aren't getting necessarily captured in pathways, so that means need to go back and kind of follow up with them and make sure if they need any more training or just haven't kept up with it. But that's usually what I'm trying to find out. I suspect that more people are more progressed than what the record shows, but that's where I want to get a picture.
So the one thing that the reports will show is it will show for a member how many speeches they've done for that club. The problem is it won't show how many speeches they've done as a whole. So say that I'm a member of 4 clubs and I'm working on a path and I give 7 speeches in one club and 4 in another club and 6 in a third club and whatever. It's only going to show you in that one club how many speeches I've done for that club. So it's not going to show you as a whole. If you have that suspicion, because generally what happens is you have people giving levels to multiple clubs. So like I will go level 1, I will give to Summit City. Level 2, I'll give to Fort Wayne Storytellers. Level 3, I'll give to Lodge. And I spread them around as I'm working through a path. A lot of us who are members of multiple clubs do that. There's no easy way in Pathways or in TI to track to see what levels haven't been put into Toastmasters International to get credit for clubs for DCP points. That's still kind of a manual process, unfortunately.
Yep. Another question on documentation. When somebody submits for level approval, we don't, as VP, we don't see necessarily the tracking of that like we would on the old hard form where you write the dates of your speeches and maybe even have an who evaluated. Are there any things like that we should be checking on as VPE, or it really is an honor system, even though we'd kind of have a general idea, but I know if there's some members that maybe haven't been tracking fast, let's say they've been doing this over the last year and a half, and I don't have a good recollection or record of what they may have done 18 months ago. Is there anything we should be doing as VPE?
So there's a couple ways that you can do that. I think the easiest way to be able to do that is to have the member pull up that last screen that you have to be able to screen share that to show that they did the pre-test, the post-test, so that you know that they worked all the way through it. There is nothing within Toastmasters that stops anybody who wants to take credit for work that they didn't do from getting credit from work that they didn't do. Unfortunately, the only person that they're really hurting with that is themselves. That if you have somebody that just wants to get an award, there's a reason why over the years, the DTM award is, as opposed to being always known as Distinguished Toastmaster, has also been called Don't Time Me, Don't Tell Me, Did the Manual. There's a bunch of acronyms that it's become over time because you have folks that have signed off on what they've done but haven't learned anything along the way. There's not a single best way to be able to do that. If you have suspicions that someone is just signing stuff off and not ever actually doing speeches, ask them where they spoke. If it's outside of your club, if it's in a different club, talk to that other club then. That's probably your best way. If you think somebody is fraudulently going through there, but at the same point, there's no Toastmasters police.
I just want to make sure that if there was a check that we were supposed to do, but yeah, I wouldn't expect it would happen. We had a situation, actually, it's kind of funny. We had a new member that was being really proactive and thought they were working through all the projects and the programs and were doing, going through all the screens without necessarily giving the speeches. And it got submitted to me, completed level 1. And I know they hadn't even given their icebreaker yet. So it was just more of an understanding of what was needed, but that was someone trying to be proactive and not realizing, well, it meant you had to give that speech before you finish that project. But I wouldn't expect
and
that
that's a
would be
really good
normal.
use for the mentor also. That if you have the mentor that's going through and helping them understand those first few speeches to not just how to do a speech, but kind of like that there is a speech involved. I've seen that same thing in a different club. I had somebody who went through and completed their first level, and I'm like, that's really funny. You've not been to a meeting. I have no idea where you've done them. He's like, well, I did it at home. Like I read all this stuff. I watched the videos. I'm like, no, that's great, but that's not how this works. That kind of stuff is going to happen. It's very much on the honor system, like the old way was also. It's still very much on the honor system, and the relationships are really the most important part. That if you think somebody is really trying to game the system, ask them why. Like, what's in it for them? You might find that it's, my boss told me I have to come here and do a path or else I'm going to get fired. I completely understand why they would want to do that quickly and not get fired. I get that. If it's somebody that really just wants a plastic trophy, take up a club collection of $0.25 per person and let them go buy a plastic trophy on their own, because they're not going to get anything from Toastmasters. But there's there's no system for it.
Yeah, I'm also in a corporate club, so I have a lot of us that give presentations outside of the team meetings. I'll encourage them to, if you're giving a speech, as long as there's another Toastmaster there that can give you an evaluation, you get credit for that. Don't waste
Absolutely.
the speech. So we take advantage of that a lot within our corporate environment.
Yep. Yeah. No free speeches. Wonderfully done. It is perfect. Another Toastmaster in the room, giddy up. You get evaluated and apply that one without a doubt. Robin, I also encourage you that if in a corporate club, encourage people to come and practice those things that they're going to give outside of the club, that they're going to give to their boss, they're going to give to a board meeting, whatever. Come in and practice it and fail miserably in front of Toastmasters so they can succeed magnificently outside of Toastmasters. to allow this to be that laboratory of failure to help them learn how to do all the things that they don't want to fail in front of their boss. So allow them to come in and fail in front of us. That's what we're here
Yep.
for.
Exactly. Yeah, we do
Yeah.
that. Often use those outside meetings as recruitment tools that, oh, by the way, so-and-so is being evaluated for Toastmasters. This is a great opportunity for everyone that wants to practice those skills. So
Well
use
done.
them-
Very
use them
well
as-
done. Love that. What else? What other questions do y'all have? All right, friends. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to hit stop record.